risorse naturali debbano essere utilizzati correttamente. E pensate, la dieta mediterranea, che nasce dalla filosofia greca, è una modalità corretta di interagire con l'ambiente.
It's really an interesting crowd, and I'm sure it will be absolutely fascinating for them to go back to their own origin and hopefully implement what they understood and have a better knowledge and understanding of the European Union in that.
Rethinking the essence of great food systems is very important. I believe that we all need to reconsider the importance of taste, to reconsider what we use in agriculture, to reconsider farming practices, but also to reconsider what do we do with these products.
Quello che accade a Pollica, lo si può soltanto vivere. La consapevolezza che noi abbiamo a Pollica è che credere fermamente nelle proprie idee significa realizzare quelle idee.
My goodness, was great to see all your faces and the journey we did together. Welcome everyone, I'm Sara Roversi, I'm the president of the Future Food Institute, and today we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Mediterranean diet as a UNESCO World Intangible Heritage, together with three very, very special friends for all of us. The first one that I'm calling with me here is the mayor of the city of Pollica, Stefano Pisani. He hosted us last summer for the first Climate Shapers Bootcamp focused on Mediterranean diet that we organized together with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, and was really an incredible learning experience for all of us. Then today we have with us Professor Peter Klosse from the Taste Academy. He is a great friend as well of the Future Food Institute. He is together with us in our Climate Shapers Bootcamp, both the digital version, the physical version since the beginning, and we're talking with him about taste, but also about health and sustainability related to the food experience. And last but not least, there is Mark Brand. Mark Brand, friend of the Future Food Institute. We started our journey together in New York at the United Nations last year, where together we were just advocating for a better food system and working together with the European delegation at the UN and many other important people that are over there creating new policies for us and working in big things and big offices. We were just telling them we need to do something to fight food waste. And we started there, and together with our community, we were pushing, and we made the first UN Day of Food Loss and Waste that came to life. So together with Mark, we started at the UN, and he's still part of our family, inspiring our students, our climate shapers, and it's amazing to have you with us. Why we are all together? Because in September we were together in Pollica, and I wanted to have them with us because I'm sure that each of them has a different thought, a different perception, different values that they were able to capture out of this experience. And when we're talking about Mediterranean diet, we're not just talking about an ephemeral thing, because what we have been living in Pollica was something very tangible, made by people, made by workers, made by stories, made by food, made by taste, biodiversity. We were exposed to really a unique experience. So first of all, Stefano, I know that this is a very important day for you. I just wanted to have you with us to kick off our conversation.
Hi, hello to everybody. It's a pleasure for me. Thank you, Sara, for the invitation. I want to say only a few things. First of all, sorry for my English. I speak in English, but it's very bad. For us, for Pollica, for Cilento community, is very important day today. 10 years ago, the UNESCO recognized the Mediterranean diet as a cultural heritage. And an important thing happened. All around the world, everybody talk about Mediterranean diet, but many people think that the Mediterranean diet is only a diet, so we can choose how to eat, what we want to eat, but it's very different. The Mediterranean diet probably born a long time ago, 2,000 years ago, when the ancient Elea Velia, a Greek city in the south of Campania region, was founded by two famous philosophers. And from the foundation of Elea, the people can build the culture of Mediterranean lifestyle. Year by year, we arrive to the modernity when the people try to choose the best way to live. Not a modern way to live. We can eat many vegetables, not much beef and other thing, but only because we are poor. And now, after the very important work by Ansel and Margaret Keys, we discovered the Mediterranean diet, a lifestyle, a new way of life. But now for us, the Mediterranean diet is a model for the future, a way to develop our communities in the very best way, friendly for the environment and very good for health. So we have many citizens who live many years, around 100 years old, and stay well. Why? Probably the secret is Mediterranean diet. Probably the secret is environment, is good food, is tradition, is cultural, is the lifestyle, is the Mediterranean lifestyle. And now we have a big opportunity. All the world can choose and change the right way for the future. We need to we need to to put in field our ideas or good ideas for the future. We need to choose the right way to produce food. We need to choose the right way for agriculture, for fishing, for produce good in general. And we need to choose a right way to improve the knowledge of next generation. We need to transfer, we will transfer the culture of Mediterranean diet in the next generation. This is the big challenge for the future. We need to um, explain to the next generation why it's important to choose the right way, the right model for the future. So many scientists talk about the very important aspects of a Mediterranean diet. For a mayor, the most important aspect is the health of our citizen, is the way to have a good life for the citizen. So we invest and work with many partners around the world to build a new way of life for the future. I'm very happy to collaborate to Future Food Institute, and I hope that in the future we have other occasion to work together. Probably the other aspect important for the Mediterranean diet is join together, stay together, work together. Uh, Convivium is very important. So we decide to share all our cultural heritage with other people around the world. Thank you for your work. Thank you for commitment about Mediterranean diet. And for us, it's very important to say happy birthday Mediterranean diet. Everybody sing a song. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.
So much.
Have a good day.
Stefano. Ciao, Stefano.
Ciao.
And we send you a very big hug, virtual hug to the entire community. This summer, when we were there, we felt really part of the family of Pollica, and it was amazing really to have the chance to touch and see how the people there are living. The farmers, the fishermen, all the women that were opening their houses, welcoming us and the students. So this, I think, is one of the major values that we brought back with us. So thank you so much, Stefano. And for sure, we're going to come back. As soon as the lockdown will end, we're going to fly to Pollica.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
So, as Stefano was saying, of course, during these days, we have been exposed to many thoughts about the Mediterranean diet, hearing the words of philosophers, scientists, many people, experts studying the Mediterranean diet since decades. But I think that the most interesting thing I heard and that is characterizing the Mediterranean diet is that it's not just a diet, as he was saying. It is this kind of set of tools made by skills, knowledge, rituals, songs, symbols. It's really something more than just what we know about the Mediterranean diet. And I heard also, and I was stating that it's a kind of soft power, like the diplomats are using a soft power sometimes to advocate for specific actions, is a kind of soft power that now I think it's needed so much. Also because if we go back and we see what we need now from say the food system perspective, the social perspective, is pretty much represented by the Mediterranean diet as we were living it when we were there in Pollica. So I want to start this conversation and really making it like a friend conversation around the table. I'm so sorry, I have no food to share with you, but generally in Italy, the best things happen when you are around the table with your friends, sharing this kind of experiences. And I want to hear from you. What do you think are the major values that you have been experiencing? Of course, coming from two different cultures, because we have Peter coming from the Netherlands, a country where food innovation, food science has a lot to say everywhere in the world. And Mark, coming from Canada, being approached in the kind of situation where every single day is talking about inequality, but not talking about inequality, fighting inequality in the food system. And I think that those two different perspectives of two friends that have been experiencing Mediterranean diet with us and the origin of it, I think is going to be a very valuable thoughts to share with our audience today. So, Peter, you want to start?
Oh, yes, please. And indeed, I thank you, Sara, and the mayor for giving us the opportunity to spend some time in Pollica and really experience the beautiful surroundings and the peaceful village and everything that determines the Mediterranean diet. And from even before I came there, I already always had a problem with the word diet, because diet suggests that it's indeed a kind of the only right way of eating, and I believe that would be, you do very much short to what the Mediterranean way of living is if you only concentrate on eating, because it's much more than eating. It's also living. It's living together. It's living close to the land and being attached to the land. And I believe that is one of the major things that we've seen right in the south of Italy, where the Mediterranean diet is, let's say, established, but it's all around the Mediterranean, of course. And it makes clear that we have become, I believe, a bit too much detached from our culture, from our region, from seasons, from everything that determines and used to determine who we as human beings are. Human beings always lived somewhere. And for a long time, we were also, of course, dependent on where we lived. So we couldn't travel that much, and we had foods around us, and these foods we need to be careful about because they fed us. And if we weren't careful about it, then we would ultimately starve, or at least be very hungry. So we needed to be very careful about how we harvest, how we treat nature, how we to establish our way of living for the future. I believe those are precious things, and what sometimes even the most visible things are the least noticed. And something that Goethe also said, that you only see what you know and understand. And that is something that is really important with the Mediterranean diet. There's so much obvious, but we don't see it. And that is, I believe, what you helped us to show when we were there. We really experienced what it means to live there, and what it means to be a part of just to step away from our own cultures into the Mediterranean way of living. And I believe that's a great experience, but also shows the importance, how important the attachment is between us as a person and the region where we live. And that's very important, I believe.
Thank you so much, Peter. And then I want to ask to Mark. Mark, I think, was able to grasp really the essence of that community and that way of living, because when he was there, it was, let's say, in one way connected with our students, trying to let them live the deepest connection with food, putting together incredible experiences that were not only tasty, but full of meanings. But on the other hand, he was spending his entire day without talking Italian, trying to interact with the community. And I think he had really the chance to get exposed to the essence of that land.
very much so. And I resound all of Peter's sentiments about our gratitude for you bringing us there, especially during the pandemic. What a shock, but also when we're going through moments of great change, all of our senses are heightened. So I don't know that we would have had the experience in Pollica that we did have, would it have been a normal month. And so communication, I get asked about this a lot because I work in Thailand and all sorts of other places where I don't speak the language. And nonverbal communication is, I believe, more important, right? How you approach somebody, what your energy looks like. And God bless Google Translate for allowing me to meander through communications with fishermen and with farmers and with people every single day. I get to just spend time with them and react to their food. So when somebody gives you something to taste or hands you something and says, this is what I make, and it truly is revolutionary for you because you're like, I've never tasted something that tastes like this, right? Because the Mediterranean diet is very much about not messing with what nature intended. This is what a tomato actually tastes like. So when you feed somebody a tomato from the south of Italy for the first time, and they've been eating grocery store tomatoes their whole life, they don't understand. Like, what did they do to this tomato? It's like, well, they didn't do anything to this tomato. It's what they do to the other 10 billion tomatoes a day that makes you think that they don't taste like this. So it's a real return to also how to live sustainably. There wasn't a change in Pollica to say, hey, we have to use more scarcity and be more mindful of what we use in everything. You don't see the tentacles of capitalism like you do in North America or Western society that are like churn and burn. New TV, new everything all the time. And we got the distinct pleasure to be hosted by Stefano's parents for lunch. And it's a moment that I'll never, ever forget. And so sitting around that table we bought this dining table. This is the dining table we have for our life. We have this piece of equipment and we've been making this gnocchi this way for 10 generations. And there's this beautiful thought of what the most important part of any interaction or convening or community is this. It's not about what you have. It's really how we respect each other and how we respect it. So I built our experiences, Sara, with that at the heart of the matter, right? Because we have scarcity. Every time we work together, Iceland, New York, using waste food, we have scarcity. And with that scarcity, you have to use your values and your skill sets to create something beautiful for people. And so we had a lot of fun, and our final dinner was on the beach together. We had a giant fire. Thank you, Stefano, for finding us a space to do so. But the center of that Mediterranean diet was, I went out the day before and got fish. And whatever fish we got is what we had. There wasn't a grocery store to go to top it up. There wasn't a supplier to call to top it up. We had what we had. And it was wonderful. And we didn't focus on, I wish there was more. And so our consumerism really shows when we spend times in places with 2,500 people as a population. And a return to that style of living, I believe, is one of the only things that will save us. So it was a deep honor to be there and to learn more about the Mediterranean diet in person.
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you for reminding us that highlighting on the concept of scarcity is something that sometimes we forget. But when you have scarcity, you really have to extract the essence and all the qualities as much as you can. And this is probably what makes this experience so unique. And also sometimes the care about the produce. We live in the Mediterranean diet, the Mediterranean area where actually we are exposed to a huge risk of desertification in the next years. There are a lot of issues related to water scarcity and many other issues. And probably this is the reason why the growers over there put so much love in what they do. And then I'm super glad because our friend Turow-Paul from the Food for Climate League was able to join. I'm very glad to have you with us. And Eve also is a long-term friend of the Climate Shapers Bootcamp of our institute, and together with Peter Klosse, we are together inside the Google Food Lab. Actually, this is the place where we had the chance to meet and started our journey together. And actually, Eve, with our brand new child, the Food for Climate League, is really one of those persons that is working to study how might we expand those kind of concepts and make climate conscious comprehensible to everyone, spreading the concept not only in a virtual way, but let people have this deep understanding on how our food choices are connected with the impact we're making in the world. And so Eve, of course, had the chance to work with our students last year, and they are involved in our Climate Shaper boot camps as well. But I think it's really interesting to hear from her how we can connect the values that Peter and Mark were sharing to the broader audience, because this is actually the challenge we are facing. We had experiences that were pretty unique. We were together around the table, meeting one-on-one with people, really experiencing being there with our body, our mind, our soul. And it's so tough to imagine this kind of impact exponential everywhere in the world.
Thank you, Sara, for that introduction. And it's been great to listen in. I'm so glad I was able to join you all this morning. And I'm sorry that I was a little bit late. So I was able to hear, both Peter and Mark, and a lot of what you were saying is resonating. Food for Climate League is an organization that was founded about a year ago. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and Future Food Institute has just been integral to our development. And our goal is to democratize sustainable eating. And a lot of what Peter and Mark were discussing really resonates with me, because at the end of the day, those sustainable ways of eating, whether it is local, seasonal, more biodiverse, those are all viscerally pleasurable ways of eating as well. They're ways of eating that human beings have adhered to until recent history. I often think back to the fact that refrigeration was only widely available in the middle of the last century, and that really changed the way that we eat. But we evolved to have more localized seasonal diets, to be sharing our meals with others, to be discovering new things, being creative with our food and communitarian with our food. But as Sara was alluding to, this sustainable way of eating has become so niche. It's that a lot of people believe that it is a privilege to eat this way. And for a lot of people, it is, because certain products are not being marketed or targeted towards this wider audience. And so instead, sustainable eating has become something that's associated with often white, Western, and wealthy cultures. When in reality, these ways of eating are indigenous. They're the ways, again, that we evolved to eat, and they're viscerally pleasurable. It's good for us physically as well as emotionally. So what Food for Climate League is doing is trying to rewrite the narrative around food and climate. We're doing that really by starting off by asking a lot of questions, looking at what role food plays in people's lives. Again, not just physical, not just what is there and what's available, but what role does food play emotionally? What gaps can food fulfill? And how can we guide people towards sustainable ways of eating by playing into those emotional needs? Because at the end of the day, this is how we should all be eating. It makes sense for our planet. It makes sense for our bodies. We just need to talk about it in a way that doesn't make people feel excluded. We need to make people feel included and able to celebrate their heritages, their local talent, the local land. There's such a wide array of ways of engaging with sustainable food culture. And the Mediterranean diet, I think, is such a great example of the multitudes of ways of sustainable eating, but also how darn delicious it is and how good it is for our bodies. And we're excited about the opportunities that lay before us.
Thank you so much, Eve. Actually, what you were saying is something that I always hear also in Mark's words. It is not so easy now more than ever before to feed people in a healthy and sustainable way. Overall, for people like Mark that have both commercial restaurants, maybe high-end restaurants, on the other side, they are serving the community, feeding thousands of people in need every single day, because now we have to think that we have millions of families that don't have access to normal food. In our cities, we're not talking about places far away from where we live. And so I think that combining the healing power of food, the pleasure side of food, but also the topic of access is crucial now more than ever before. So really, I think it would be interesting to hear also from both Peter and Mark from two different perspectives. How do you face this situation now? How, for example, you, Mark, you of course, I know you are super connected with farmers because we're taking inspiration from the Mediterranean diet. Of course, we're not telling everyone they need to move in the Mediterranean Sea to get inspired from the Mediterranean diet approach. So how do you see in your work the values that you have been seeing there and how you are facing this issue? Because you're feeding people needs in a healthy way, and this is a huge challenge.
Yeah, and Eve got like, I'm triggered in 9 different ways of excitement. So thank you for sharing all that. I was like trying to lean back and then trying to get comfortable. And I'm like, I have so much to say. So let me be succinct as I possibly can. We're doing 3 very, very clean things right now. One, outside of here is the downtown east side of Vancouver, the world's largest open air drug market, densest area of homelessness and mental illness. Mission and Tenderloin, a little more spread out. Skid Row, a little more spread out. We've all seen the areas. This is the pressure cooker. I've worked in it for 15 years. So every day we do 1,000 meals, scratch-made cooking. We liaise deeply with farmers and suppliers, and we added a notch to that belt. When I got back from Pollica, I said, I can't just be talking about waste food at the UN with Sara. We can't just be about that. We have to be doing it every single day. So I took on 1 grocery store, and now I have 2, and I'll have 5 by the new year. And we take all of their waste every single day with a sustainable tricycle that goes out with a big thing on the back. It brings it down to us and my team of cooks, reconstitute all of the food, repackage it, and get it out to shelters, predominantly for women and children fleeing violence and indigenous populations. Since June, we've done 5 million tons and kept 15 million tons of carbon emission out of the landfills. We're going to exponentially increase that work along with our scratch-made food because there is enough food. And Sara, you've heard me beat this drum so many times. If we talk about 3 billion pounds being wasted, it's way more than that. It's way more than that because of the way that we consume. When we were in Pollica, if I went to the fishmonger and I got there 30 minutes after open, half of the fish was gone. It wasn't being bleached or built back up or like set up for the next day. That's the fish that was there. And that's what was available. And so we're trying to bring that entire concept to what we're doing here. And then the third, and I think most important thing we're doing right now is with A Better Life Foundation US, which is our 501c3 down there. And that's our digital convenings called Sharpen Up. So we work, of course, in the Bronx, Harlem. We work in Oakland, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, predominantly focusing on youth and marginalized communities, so BIPOC communities, and that's where we spend our time. And we're deeply rooted and connected into direct connection with people there and showing up and teaching critical skill. The biggest thing that we don't talk about is teaching people how, right? We're talking about provision constantly, everything from Feeding America to the food banks, et cetera. Like it's all about getting people food. But when you get people food that's first of all not culturally relevant to them or the same can of lima beans over and over again, and I'm not throwing these people under the bus, I sit on their councils, it's just a different way. So we started to do Sharpen Up, which is a digital convening. We have 15 to 20 families that join us from partner organizations here. I deliver them groceries that they choose, agency, and decide on recipes that they want to make. And we hang out, and then we do a second class that's one-on-one, teach you how to hold a knife, teach you how to properly sear, teach you how to properly boil. You're 7 years old, you're 8 years old, you're 9 years old, and you can walk out the back of this course and literally into one of my kitchens and start as a prep cook. Cooking is dead set simple. It's so easy, but we built a culture around fear. And so if you have these skill sets and then you walk into your bodega on the corner and you say, oh, this, and this, I know how to make a soup out of that. And that's $3 versus ordering a pizza for your family because you're holding down 3 jobs. Maybe you don't have to hold down 3. Maybe you can hold down 2 in the skill of cooking. And we see this in Latin communities, of course, heavily. That skill of cooking allows you to cook for a family of 8 or 10 with very little money. So we're trying to democratize all of that skill and are scaling that particular thing this year into doing 4,000 families. And those are 4,000 families that now will forever know how to cook and what it means to eat nutritiously and how to source these ingredients. And when we talk about food deserts, last thing I'll say, because I'll rattle on literally all day, I hate that language. and we say food apartheid. The neighborhoods in the Western world were designed specifically because of the populations that live there. And food access is not the same, but we believe there is food access because as cooks, we've seen it. So we're building a digital portal right now called Shop Where You Walk. We started with Brownsville, where you can literally look at all the spots in your neighborhood, if it's halal, if it's a Muslim family, and what they do and how they can service you. So there's lots and lots of ways during this moment where we can use technology in a meaningful way. I feel super connected to you guys right now to continue the work.
Thank you so much, Mark. When you said that cooking is easy, I was thinking about Peter. I was thinking about Peter that then with his academy is teaching to sommelier, to chefs, to young cooks. In the school where you invited me in the Netherlands, we were talking with hundreds of students studying that. I think that the role of cooks is crucial now. It's really important. And when you're talking with our students at the bootcamp, you are always sharing your theory of the cat theory that I think is super inspiring. And I want to know from you, how do you see that the role of cooks and chefs should evolve? And what's the power they have in their hand? How you think we can inspire to become more impactful?
Yes, it's a beautiful how things go from the one to the other, because Eve started with introducing health. And the problem with health is that it is it has become very formal and something very academic. And health, of course, should be a feeling of well-being. And then Mark continued with cooking, that it is so distant to people and made it very complicated. And again, it needs to go back to people. And the wonderful work Mark is doing exactly that, making it accessible, empower people to do and to live this healthy life. So the next my contribution to round the circle, if you want, is that where health and food come together is that the better foods, so that's the CAT approach, the better foods for the future, either from a sustainable point of view or from a health point of view, need to be just as convenient, just as affordable, and just as tasty, C-A-T, as the foods that we're asking people to give up, because something has happened in our food systems and the way we eat. The hyper processed foods entered the scene. We've changed molecules all the way, and now we think that healthy is something that you can do by adding things to food. So the tomato that of course Mark already referred to, I believe that many people now believe if you want to have a healthy tomato, you need to inject, for instance, vitamin C to it, or calcium to it, or some kind of a beta carotene to do whatever. And I think that is a very, let's say, silly approach to health. Health never was that way. We never formulated health in such a way. Health was always a part of us, and living, let's say, the good life and listening to your body, and our body is very capable of surviving. So the CAT approach is really about getting better foods to people, and I believe that the better foods, maybe we should quit using the word health altogether. In my projects in the Netherlands, we use more and more the word vital and vitality. And the beauty of vitality is that you can be healthy and not very active, or feeling down, and therefore not having a low vitality. So health is a rather has become a difficult word, and therefore I believe vitality and improving vitality and getting more vitality to the people in ways that Marx describes, in ways that Eve describes, eating more, let's say, real foods. Go back to real foods. Go back to real products. Go back to the ones that are available in your area. Go back to seasons. Go back to what is out there. And then prepare those things as with these, indeed, skills that are not very complicated. Chefs and all these chefs programs have given this idea of chefs that they are some kind of a god living on I don't know what planet, but doing crazy things to people, and have made good food also something very distant again, complicated. Oh, you need to know all these recipes, and I would really love more and more, and that's exactly what I try to do with my courses and educational programs and books. I try to get people back to taste and get back to you don't need a recipe. If you have very good products to start with, you hardly have to do anything to it. In fact, if you do your cooking right, if you use overripe products from the land or the supermarkets, they are probably even tastier than ones that were on the shelf before, because they ripen through. And then often if you use those products, you don't even have to use salt or sugar or whatever, because the products have them from themselves. So this whole idea of either formulating health in additives or formulating taste in additives in some way or form is a very silly approach to foods. And going back to good living means also having the good foods, which are, and then the whole sequence of season and everything. And then just don't do much, prepare it, eat it when necessary, eat it with fun, eat together, eat at a table. Those are the best advice that you can give to people. Eat real foods together, prepare them. Don't do silly things.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much. So I have just one last question for all of you. I think that we are all spread in different parts of the world, but mainly on this Western side of the world, the COVID pandemic is hitting back again so strongly. And at least here in Italy, we are going back to almost a full lockdown again. And what we're missing the most, of course, are our sharing moments. And food is always at the epicenter of that. And we're also seeing the numbers of people getting sick, not only getting sick because of flu or COVID or other things, but getting sick for loneliness, for disconnection. And so how do you think we can get inspired from good examples, best practices, really to try to heal people through food, and how we can really reconnect and help people to bring back this kind of soul, this kind of the love that you can share with food? Just one suggestion from all of you, because I think that the audience here can really take your suggestions and maybe practice that with their community. And I invite, as we invite also our fellow students at the Climate Shapers Bootcamp, really to share with their community, even if it's a small community. Before the COVID pandemic, we were sharing dinners with 10, 30, 40 friends. Now maybe are just 5. But anyway, we need to care about the relationship we have, and food for sure is a good way to do it. Eve, I want to start from you.
Okay. Well, Sara, my mind does continue to go back to this current, crazy moment we're living in. I also think that my mind right now is very US centric because I'm stuck at home and there's so much happening here. We're also back into lockdown here in Chicago, or it's shelter in place. And something that I'm hopeful for when I think about 2021 and 2022 is this moment that we're living in is about isolation, but at least in the US, it's also about community and an acceptance of diversity. We've had an amazing racial justice movement happening at the same time that we've been in lockdown. And a lot of the themes that we're talking about are about accepting diversity and celebrating diversity, whether that's diversity of talent, of people, of locations, of varietals. And I think that we're in this really beautiful moment where if we can create a welcoming, inclusive narrative that's going to speak to a wider group of people by connecting those dots and saying, this is not just saying the words of racial, justice. By democratizing sustainable eating, that is in and of itself a form of racial justice and social justice. And I think that that is something that can be celebrated. And I do think that it's something that can also, whether or not you want to be really bold, with that statement, with that form of activism. I do think that there are ways of even subtly weaving that into a menu, a restaurant offering, a way of talking to people. Because even the conversation we're having about cooking, the fact that cooking has become a privilege, that's racial injustice. The fact that we have ended up in this place where we have taken those skills essentially away from these populations that by and large have given us our food culture, at least here in the US. I could talk for a long time. I will stop because I'm eager to hear what Peter and Mark have to say.
I love it. You know how much we care about celebrating diversity and give voice to the unheard. So thank you so much for raising this topic. Mark.
I'm just letting the words marinate because it's a celebration moment as much as it's a moment of us mourning a lot of different things. It's also a changing of the guard that was so desperately needed, that the focus will continue to be on racial justice and equity, right? So I think in all of our movements, we spend a lot of our time yelling, please listen to me, please listen to me. And during COVID, we saw the lens turn 180 and everybody start asking us questions. And we're like, hey, actually, can I talk to you about that? We got time, right? And so people have spent this time either really, really well in sharpening their own knowledge, and it's not just coffee talk or cocktail party talk anymore, to understand 400 years of systemic oppression, to understand, genocides of indigenous populations all over the planet, from Australia to right here. Like, when we understand that, we can understand food better. When we start to say things about like, oh, well, when the Europeans brought this to Canada, and you have indigenous populations being like, we were growing rice here for 30,000 years. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. And we start to understand where food comes from, then we get more looped into Peter's thoughts around like simplicity, right? I taught somebody literally last night via Zoom how to make a butternut squash soup from a whole piece. And they, at the end of it, were like, but what else? I'm like, there is nothing else. You've done it. You've completed the task. You took a whole food, you broke it down, you boiled it, you have a soup option, you have a puree option, you have baby food, you have dog food, you have all of this food from this one thing that cost you $2. And their mind, and this is an intelligent, like hardworking person, we've just been focused on all the wrong things. Not all the wrong things, not exaggerate for purpose, but really to bring it back to a place of like, what have we enjoyed from our privilege? What if we become disillusioned with because of our privilege? What do we owe? I think that word is really important, to be able to broach these conversations with people who've lived in these situations, and now we're seeing, and God bless the US for bringing this to a head. I'm just like, oh wow, this isn't just in Texas, right? It's everywhere on the planet. So to be able to have this beautiful moment of like awareness and a long road of reconciliation that feels like we're finally actually gonna walk it versus just talk about it in small rooms or political rooms is huge. And it takes us back to justice and to how we can all feel better. So Sara, I'll just close it. I always say this with you, but if the community's unwell, we're all unwell. We're all intrinsically connected. The mycelium doesn't just work for the trees and the mushrooms. It works for us energetically. And if we're walking past 30, 40, 50 displaced people in the cities that we live in, that sits here until it's fixed. And so I think we have a moment in all of the things that Eve was talking about and that we've spoken about today, to really take a deep breath and say, what do we want to dedicate our lives to? What do we want to change in this world? And can we do it? And I believe firmly that the answer is yes.
Thank you, Mark. And actually, thanks God to keep going, having this kind of level of sensibility and feeling bad when I see those kind of things, because the worst is when people don't feel like us. And this kind of, I don't know how to say it in English, but when people don't care and don't feel bad for those kind of things, then things get wrong. So, and luckily there are now the number of people feeling bad is raising, but luckily there are even more people willing to help like you, and get inspired by stories like the one you were always sharing, Mark. Peter.
I wrote down that Kukul is racial injustice. I never thought that I would ever write that one down, but I think it's very true.
It's true.
It becomes elitarian, and that is, of course, a part of injustice. But there are two words that I would like to bring to the table, if you want. The one is diversity, but from a different angle. Diversity is, I believe, crucial for a good working system. So if a system, and we see this in agriculture very clearly, if a system becomes a mono system, so if doctors talk to doctors, and if there is only one wheat or one plant dominating the landscape, then everything goes down. So the biodiversity and the ecosystem, a rich ecosystem, works through diversity. And diversity is on the table. Diversity is between us, from the social point of view. Diversity is really needed from a natural point of view. It is one of the basic things for a good working ecosystem. If we want to have going back to really good functioning ecosystems, then diversity is one of the key elements to look at. So. And wherever, as soon as you address that and see the broadness of the concept of diversity, you realize how important it is to hear different voices, how important it is to have different people, how important to have a rich board of people that advise other people. Diversity is always crucial to having let's say, a well-formed opinion. The other word, I said the word too, the other word is harmony. Harmony. I haven't heard harmony yet, but I believe more and more, maybe it's because I get older, but I believe more and more that harmony is so important. Harmony is really the essence of life and the essence of living together. And harmony is at the table. You're starting, Sara, with bringing food to the table. It has always been throughout history. The table was the place where you didn't fight. The table is the place where you talk. The table is the place where you take your time. And there are beautiful historic examples of that as well. When we had the Treaty of Vienna, we had the French Talleyrand, the famous diplomat from his time, one of the most famous diplomats of all time. From the Napoleonic era, but as a good diplomat, he survived both the periods before and after Napoleon. So he really must be a good diplomat. And he took, so I always like that example. He took Carême, and Anthony Carême was the greatest chef of his time. And he took Carême, who was of course the chef of the palace of Versailles. He was the famous one who made the pièce montée, the beautiful cakes and everything, and the very elaborate cakes. That was Carême. And Talleyrand took Carême to the Treaty of Vienna to peace the people. So also from a historic point of view, the great diplomats have always seen the value of the table, experienced how important the table is. I can also add one example from the Dutch point of view, which we're not very proud of, but you know that the Treaty of Maastricht in Europe has formed basically the basis of what we see as Europe now. But it was actually a treaty that should have been signed 6 months before. And that was a big meeting in Nice, and that was the example. It should have been the Treaty of Nice. The French really wanted that, but that meeting went wrong because we had a Dutch Prime Minister who said that, well, let's skip dinner when the communication was a bit lousy and they needed more time. Then the Dutch said, well, let's skip dinner. And let's not. Let's really keep on. We skip dinner. We stay on at the table and really get going. And that Treaty of Nice really went wrong. And then ultimately it became the Treaty of Maastricht because that was the next meeting. And I still think that has very much to do with skipping dinner. Of course, the French.
I believe in the power of food diplomacy.
So what these crazy Dutch, what are they doing now? They take away our pleasure at the table. So pleasure and table, pleasure and eating, pleasure and communication, pleasure and having these beautiful conversations, just like you created this table, this digital table now. It is about harmony. It is about pleasure. It is about peace, and that's what we need. We need well, peace and understanding, right?
Thank you so much. As usual, when I put together incredible ingredients like you are, incredible taste comes to life, incredible experience comes to life. I learned so much, as usual. I learned so much, and there were a lot of keywords that we would love to share even more with our audience. I see that there are some questions coming from the audience. I'm going to take just one question because then the time is running. Mediterranean diet as a style of life and sustainable production and consumption model can reinterpret territory as food value system. Territorial offers systems where food becomes the key to read and organize life dimensions: cultural, social, relational, entertaining, touristic, health. Through the relationship of the network of people, communities, factories, and institutions that in the common site of food interact, talk, and start innovation and co-creation process in which identity opens to wider creational scenarios. Thank you, Maria Rosaria, for this sharing. Yes, definitely yes. So we strongly believe that this is a great opportunity that we have. Celebrating Mediterranean diet today gives us the chance to highlight all the things that you have been sharing with your thoughts. And I think that seeing those keywords expressed from different perspectives, different point of view, different cultures, like we did tonight together, has been pretty amazing, has been a gift. So I invite you all to follow the Better Life Foundation and what Mark Brandt is doing in Canada and US, what Yves Turow-Paul and all the family from the Food for Climate League are doing, the publication they're doing, the sharings that they're publishing, because I think that this is the time in history in which we can really act on climate starting from food, act on the environment starting from food. And I invite you to follow Professor Peter Klosse and the Taste Academy and get to know what we're doing, because all of us, we're working from different perspectives with our communities, but we know also, I know also that we're not reaching the ones that are far from what we're saying. So my challenge in 2021 is going to be to go to talk with the ones that were voting in the wrong way, voting in the way that is against the planet, not pro-planet, that is against the sharing, the harmony that Peter was mentioning, against diversity. I want to talk with them. I want to invite them around the table, and I want to use food diplomacy to reach their heart and to change their mind. So I invite you all to follow the journey, to follow the Climate Shapers Bootcamp. Peter, Mark, Yves, they're all going to be with us. And I thank you all for following this session. And thank you to our friends, because your words are always very enlightening. Thank you.